the fluorescent lights of Miller's diner flickered overhead as Sarah Martinez wiped down table 7 for what felt like the 100th time that night. Her feet ached, her back screamed for relief, and the weight of unpaid bills pressed against her chest like a physical thing. Through the window, she could see her beaten-up Honda in the parking lot, the one with the check engine light that had been glowing for 3 months. She didn't have the money to fix it. She barely had enough money to keep the lights on in the tiny apartment. She shared with her 6-year-old daughter, Emma. Sarah had been a waitress at Miller's diner for 4 years, ever since her husband walked out when Emma was 2. He'd left behind nothing but broken promises and a stack of debts that Sarah had slowly been chipping away at, one grueling shift at a time. Every smile she forced for customers, every "how can I help you today" that left her lips was a small act of survival. She was tired, bone deep, soul-crushing tired, but she couldn't afford to stop. Emma needed her. That little girl with the bright eyes and endless questions was the only reason Sarah got out of bed each morning. The dinner rush had finally died down when he walked in. Sarah noticed him immediately. Everyone did. He moved with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than Sarah made in 6 months. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, and a watch that could have fed her family for a year glinted on his wrist. He took a seat at the corner booth, pulled out his phone, and barely looked up when Sarah approached. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice carrying the practiced cheerfulness she'd perfected over thousands of similar interactions. "Steak, medium rare." "Black coffee?" he said without meeting her eyes. Sarah scribbled down the order and headed to the kitchen, her stomach twisting with a familiar anxiety. She'd waited on plenty of wealthy customers before, and she'd learned that they fell into 2 categories: those who tipped well because they understood struggle, and those who tipped poorly because they'd forgotten it existed. Something about this man's cold demeanor made her suspect he was the latter. She brought him his coffee, checked on him twice during his meal, and refilled his cup without being asked. He said nothing. He didn't smile, didn't make eye contact, didn't acknowledge her existence beyond a slight nod when she asked if everything was satisfactory. When he finished, he pulled out a black credit card and placed it on the check presenter without a word. Sarah processed the payment and returned with his receipt. Her heart sank when she saw the tip line, a bold, unmistakable 0. No tip at all, not even $1. After an hour of attentive service, after running back and forth to make sure his experience was perfect, he'd left her nothing. She felt the familiar sting of tears behind her eyes, but blinked them back. She couldn't afford to cry at work. She couldn't afford to let anyone see how close to the edge she really was. The other waitresses had families who helped them, safety nets to catch them when they fell. Sarah had no one. It was just her and Emma against the world. The man stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and walked toward the exit without a backward glance. Sarah watched him go, feeling something hard and bitter settle in her chest. She turned back to the table to clear his dishes, already doing the mental math of how she'd cover Emma's school supplies this month without that tip money she'd been counting on. That's when she saw it. Tucked beneath his plate, barely visible, was a folded piece of paper. At first, she thought it might be a napkin, but something made her look closer. Her hands trembled as she lifted the plate and picked up what turned out to be a handwritten note on expensive stationery. The words swam before her eyes as she read, "Sarah, I know you don't know me, but I know you. 3 months ago, my daughter was having a panic attack in your section. She struggled with severe anxiety since her mother passed away 2 years ago. You noticed she was in distress before I did. You brought her a glass of water without being asked, spoke to her gently, told her about your own daughter and how brave she was. You didn't know that your kindness helped my daughter through one of her darkest moments. You didn't know that she talked about the nice waitress for weeks afterward. You didn't know that your simple act of humanity reminded me that goodness still exists in this world." Sarah's hands shook harder. She remembered that night, a young girl, maybe 13, hyperventilating in the booth while her father tried desperately to calm her down. Sarah had simply done what felt natural, what she would have wanted someone to do for Emma if the roles were reversed. She hadn't thought about it since. The note continued, I left no tip on the receipt because I wanted to make sure what I'm giving you doesn't get split with the house or taxed immediately. Under this note, you'll find something that I hope changes your life the way you changed my daughter's." With shaking fingers, Sarah lifted the note. Beneath it was a check. Her eyes widened as she counted the zeros. $50,000. Made out to her. Dated today. Signed by James Richardson, a name she recognized from the business section of the newspaper, one of the wealthiest men in the state. Sarah's knees gave out. She sank into the booth, the check clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. $50,000. She could pay off her debts, fix her car, get Emma the tutoring she needed, maybe even go back to school herself, finish the nursing degree she'd abandoned when she got pregnant. She could breathe. For the first time in years, she could actually breathe. But it was the final line of the note that broke her completely. "My daughter asked me to tell you that you're her hero. You're mine too. The world needs more people like you. Please accept this gift not as charity, but as a thank you for reminding a broken father that raising a kind daughter is the greatest legacy we can leave. You're already doing that with Emma. I've enclosed my business card. If you ever need anything, a job, a reference, help with Emma's education, please call me. People like you deserve to be lifted up, not just to survive, but to thrive." Sarah sat in that booth for 15 minutes, crying silent tears of relief, gratitude, and disbelief. Her manager found her there and gently asked if she was okay. Through her tears, Sarah could only nod. She was more than okay. For the first time since her husband left, since the bills piled up, since she started wondering if she'd ever be more than exhausted and afraid, she felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. That night, when Sarah got home to their tiny apartment, Emma was already asleep. Sarah knelt beside her daughter's bed, watching her chest rise and fall in the peaceful rhythm of childhood dreams. She thought about the billionaire who could have simply left a generous tip and walked away feeling good about himself. Instead, he'd taken the time to remember her, to notice her humanity, to recognize that a single mother working a diner shift was someone deserving of dignity and opportunity. The next morning, Sarah deposited the check. It cleared. Over the following weeks, she paid off every debt, bought reliable transportation, and enrolled in online courses toward her nursing degree. She called James Richardson once to thank him. They spoke for an hour. He told her that his daughter, Olivia, was doing better, that she'd started volunteering at a youth center. Inspired by Sarah's example of helping others even when you're struggling yourself. 3 years later, Sarah graduated with her nursing degree. She now works in pediatric care, bringing the same compassion to frightened children that she once brought to a table in a diner. She still thinks about that night, about the $0 tip that turned into a life-changing gift, about the power of kindness to ripple outward in ways we can never predict. Emma is 9 now, thriving in school with dreams of becoming a doctor. And sometimes when Sarah tucks her in at night, she tells her the story of how a simple act of kindness, noticing someone in pain and offering comfort, changed everything. Because that's the truth that James Richardson understood, and that Sarah lives every day. We're all connected, and the smallest gestures of humanity can transform lives in ways we never imagine. The world told Sarah she was just a waitress, disposable and easily forgotten. One man saw her as she truly was, a hero doing her best with what little she had. And in seeing her, he gave her the chance to become everything she was meant to be.